Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it.
Hey folks, Randy Newberg here. Welcome to Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio.
As I went walking, I saw a sign there on the sign it said no trespassing, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. Well, that sign was made for you and me.
Hey folks, Randy Newberg here with another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. Today we have a repeat guest, my buddy Dan Gates from Colorado. You know Dan, he's the guy with the big beard, the big laugh, and doing all kinds of great stuff for wildlife and advocacy down there in Colorado. And he's got some, well, I'll call it some brainstorming tactics he's been working on that he's kind of told me about over the last year, and now they're starting to come together. And it has to do with him, and folks in Colorado are thinking that maybe it's time to play some offense down there. We know about the wolf ballot initiative. We know about they had the cats are trophies ballot initiative, all that stuff. Well, they've been doing so good on organizing, on messaging, funding, all the stuff necessary to prevail. They think they can get the signatures and prevail in a constitutional ballot initiative. So there's a ballot initiative, which is just usually needs 50.001% of the vote to pass. And that's just a law, and your legislature could override that. Then you have the next higher threshold, which each state, it varies a little bit, but you usually need a much higher percentage of votes for it to pass, or for it to be considered an amendment to the Constitution, your state constitution. So he's well on his way. Him and a bunch of his partners and advisors and people who've been on this podcast are helping him. And he called me up and said, Randy, I think it's time to get the show moving here and get the cat out of the bag, and let's do it. So I'm going to hit the button here in a minute or two. Dan's waiting in what they call the green room, and he's going to be here with his big laugh and his smile, and we're going to talk about how this is an opportunity to change things in Colorado and maybe get Colorado out of this cycle of some pretty crazy stuff that's happened under the current governor and the governor's husband. It's just been a tough slog for the last 8 years for them. And something like this would establish a much higher threshold of what is science-based management, and that wildlife is going to be managed based on science. It would be really helpful. So I want Dan to tell us what he's up to, where he thinks we can help, what we can do, and how the process is going to work. So appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate Dan standing by. So stay tuned. We're going to have a pretty good discussion here. Don't know where. Dan's kind of like me. There's an awful lot of rabbit trails that happen when Dan's around. So I don't know what we'll end up with when he and I are together, but you're about to find out. Dan Gates, how in the heck are you, man? We haven't had a podcast with you for about a year or so.
I'm absolutely just tickled to death to be back in your presence, even though we're not in person.
Yeah.
And even though I might have been in a room by myself waiting for you to show up, I was. I'm just tickled to death, Randy.
Well, you know, part of the reason it's probably been a year more than that since we had a podcast, is you're the busiest guy around. And you know what they say, if you want something done right, ask the busiest guy in town. And you'd fall in that category.
I've tried to get my frequent flyer miles and my rewards on the hotels, to where I could do something with them, but it wasn't by choice. I mean, just as an example, I mean, the month of April, I was home 9 nights. In March was 5, and that's because of the legislative session in Colorado and with the shows and the conferences that we were doing, just to be able to try to stay afloat.
Yeah. Well, we're lucky in Montana. Our legislature only convenes every other year, and they have a limit of 90 days, even though we all say we wish they met every 90 years for 2 days instead of every 2 years for 90 days. Yeah, you guys, just that in itself, that commission meetings, ballot initiatives. I mean, the amount of stuff that you guys have going on in Colorado is numbing. I'm sure for you it's even more so. But this is my frequent reminder to our audience, no matter where you live, that you need to pay attention to Colorado. And we did a podcast about Oregon earlier this year because they got some crazy stuff going on that's trying to get on their ballot initiative, or on their ballot. It's an initiative. And I don't know, you guys in Colorado you got some folks there running your operation that seem like they want to win the race of craziness. And but you guys put a whooping on them quite frequently. Like, what was it, about a month ago, there were some commissioners that were being nominated, and you guys got those withdrawn. Two of them, right?
Two of them, and we know that we're going to end up with like Jabba the Hutt and Darth Vader for 2 more that are going to replace them. And then we've got 3 other ones coming in July, and I wouldn't be surprised to see like Hannibal Lecter and Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. I mean, we know that we knew that we had a tough road to toe. Yeah. But when January came along on those commissioners, our goal as a community was to give a new gubernatorial candidate, a new governor, an option of having 5 commission appointments out of 11 that they could make their own mind up because of unconfirmed commissioners. And that's exactly what we did. If we hadn't fought diligently on those last 2 and essentially forced their resignation or Governor Polis to make them resign, they didn't have the votes. But if we hadn't done that, we would have had 2 confirmed commissioners, and it would have been only 3 potential unconfirmed ones that a new governor could have appointed. The interesting thing is there's 2 other appointments that are going to come up in July of 27. So in essence, in the first 6 months of a new governor's term, he or she could actually have 7 out of 11 that were unconfirmed that they would be able to turn around and choose. That in itself doesn't sound like much, and I'm sure that if any of my animal rights extremist adversaries are sitting on here just because they like to follow me everywhere to the grocery store and the dog groomer and the feed store and Randy Newberg's podcast, I mean, they're going to find out that I'm hopeful that they're going to have to deal with some of the things that we've had to deal with, but we want some levity. We want some civility and decorum brought back to the level of the commission, and those positions were appointed for reasons, not for specific gubernatorial agendas.
Right, exactly.
We think there should be some balance on the commission. There should be multiple levels of representation. That's not been the case more often than not over the course of the last 8 years.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. You know, we all say we want this stuff to be nonpartisan, but the partisans don't want our issues to be nonpartisan. And so they drag this stuff into their little phrase and they use so many of our issues as the chips that they repay political debts with, that it puts continual battles in front of us. But so where do you want to start? Let's start with the 30,000 foot overview of what's going on in Colorado. You know, you guys are kind of I think more of a big game traveling state for you guys host more non-resident elk hunters than any state in the country, I believe.
Yeah.
And so even though we see stuff that goes on in Washington and, you know, their commission and all those problems, that group up there is doing a good job sniffing that out. We got Oregon. You know, it seems like every state's got something going on, but you guys have kind of become a bit of ground zero for some of these things that affect not just Colorado hunters, but a lot of non-resident hunters because of how many non-resident hunters you guys host in Colorado.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because while we have some residents in the state that are trying to further restrict or prohibit non-resident participation, once they find out the revenue stream that needs to be upgraded substantially when it comes to resident hunters to replace the revenue of non-resident hunters, to just neutral it out, our resident elk tag would have to be something like $403 if you got rid of all non-resident elk hunters. And it's worth mentioning that, you know, this is the people's wildlife.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the state of Colorado's wildlife. I mean, when elk go back and forth to New Mexico, or they go back and forth to Wyoming, or go back and forth to Utah, or whatever, you look at that and go, are we really taking care of our wildlife? No, we're taking care of the wildlife.
Yeah.
And I think people need to understand that, just like what we're going to talk about today, the reason that we need to do it like that is because it needs to be done like that in order to have it sustainably in perpetuity.
Yeah. Well, you've the amount of did you ever expect, say maybe 10 years ago, Dan, that your level of experience in policy and politics and electioneering and ballot initiatives would grow to be the level of expertise you have today?
Oh God, no. I just wanted to turn around and run my wildlife control business and go hunting with my kid and you know, take a little bit of time with my wife and spend some family time. You know, I'm 62 years old, Randy, and we've run this wildlife control business. It's a human wildlife conflict resolution business. I want to emphasize, because my adversaries here, you know, think that I go out and I lethally remove every single thing, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I just, you know, we started that because there was a need. And we were doing it well before 1996, when the ballot initiative, the constitutional amendment, banned trapping in the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think that, honestly, people take things for granted. And I got tired of constantly looking at the way the legislature was dealing with, or the ballot initiatives, or the commission, and standing on the sidelines and not necessarily doing what I thought needed to be done.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe that there's an opportunity for everybody to engage. We've all got the same amount of time in a day.
Yeah.
We all have the same avocational pursuits in some degree. If you're not going to stand up for it, who's going to? And that's where we started CRWM back in 2016.
Yeah. Well, you guys have made a lot of difference. You know, when you got a hold of me a week or two ago, I've been, not that I like to do Facebook, but I know you guys have a pretty active Facebook following. So I went out there, and it's like every day you guys got something where you got to make the call to action or find a way to raise some money for this initiative or that initiative. And you guys are just really, really busy. And I don't know if you want to start. You told me that you guys are going to start playing some offense. And you kind of planted that seed with me when you and I were visiting. It wasn't on a podcast. I think it was last summer sometime. You said something about, hey, pay attention, because I think we're going to start playing some offense. What did you mean by that?
Well, any good football team, and I use sports analogies a lot because, for one, I like sports, and I played a little bit in high school, and you know, I played some ball in my day, rode some bulls, which there's not much of an analogy for that except for hang on like a monkey on top of a football. But there's a plan of action that goes into everything that people engage in, and I think that when you're on defense, your plan of action is to stop the other team from scoring.
Right.
That's the intent. And if you get the ball, or if it's a puck or whatever, baseball is a little different. I played a lot of baseball, but you have individual innings. You got one side on offense and one side on defense. It's not like the pitcher could take the ball back or the other ball. I mean, they have the same time. The football side of it, and I think that Colorado's sports wildlife conservation conversation is a lot like football. We have not had the ball. We've been going up against a juggernaut of adversarial enemies to the point to where when we formulated CRWM, we had already saw what had happened all the way going back to 1992 with the Bear Initiative, Initiative 10, Spring Bear. And it took away hounds and bait and spring bear hunting. And then 4 years later, we saw the constitutional amendment on Amendment 14, which essentially banned avocational trapping on public land, but took away all the tools unless it was an agricultural damage exemption period. And so you look at how things progressed, and there's a variety of reasons it didn't get any more active. But until 2020, it was mostly commission and legislature, commission and legislature, commission and legislature. 2020 came along, and Proposition 114 came about where they wanted to bring in wolves.
Right.
And, that was a defensive measure that some organizations and entities and individuals undertook. We didn't. And the reason we didn't is because we were fighting all the other stuff at the legislature and the commission that nobody was fighting.
Yeah.
And we knew that if we divided and conquered our own resources, we were liable to turn around and lose all of it.
Yeah.
And I guess 2020 hindsight of should we have gotten involved in wolves? Possibly. But we didn't have the financial resources to be able to do so at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that one of my biggest challenges was deciding what are we going to do with what we've been able to accomplish? Because at that time, we've been around for 4 years. And then COVID happened. And then we got handed a bill of goods because the antis actually capitalized nationwide on a variety of different levels because of COVID, because nobody could go anywhere and support. Right. Nobody could go anywhere and protest either.
Right.
So it was a kind of catch-22 because in a commission that now went virtual and the legislature went virtual, nobody could go anywhere. Yep. They tried to run roughshod over many different segments of what we're talking about today, and we were successful in defeating every single one of them. And then came 2023 when they decided, okay, we lost all these other issues. Let's try the ballot. Let's see what these guys have against the ballot.
Yeah.
In totality, you're fighting 12 or 13 different issues over about a 6-year period, and you beat every single one of them by magnificent proportions. And then they went to the ballot, and we got criticism. Why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? And you should be doing this. And I'm like, if you've ever watched football, and I go back to that analogy, when the defense gets the ball, they become the offense, but they're still defense. And I know that, I joke about we've had a good football team with the Denver Broncos, except for a 10-year period, but we've been pretty good the last couple of years. I would never want to be the Cleveland Browns because they were always on offense and never did nothing worth a darn. And I think that there was you just knew unless they scored on the defense, there was no way, shape, or form they're going to win. Well, that's kind of the way a lot of the sportsmen and women in the state of Colorado looked, is because they wanted us to do something offensively. Okay. And we got to a point now to where there's an opportunity that you have to have those stars align, and you have to have finances in line. You have to have strategy in line. You have to have polls in line. You have to have players in line to do something offensively. Defense, you got the same strategy, but the goal is to stop and get the ball. Stop them and get the ball. Stop them and get the ball. The offense their goal is to turn around and take that ball and go down and score. And I think right now, we've actually been able to formulate a plan to be well established on defense, take advantage of the current landscape of the politics in the state of Colorado, as you mentioned about the commission, win at the legislature, try to beat back the governor and the first gentleman's desires to essentially capsize the agency that manages our wildlife resources, and at the same time, us be able to turn around and utilize the resources and the partnerships that have been built up that people want to play in Colorado to try to set the tone and narrative for how maybe things happen moving forward and how they happen in other states. Yeah. All the stars have to align to be able to do that, and I think we're getting close to the point where that's going to happen.
Cool. So if those stars align, what does that going to happen concept, can you talk about what that looks like?
Yeah, so that will be, right now, we were approached about 8 weeks ago, from the International Order of T. Roosevelt, who ran the constitutional right to hunt and fish ballot initiative in the state of Florida in 2024 and won by a significant victory, a margin of victory. And they're working on Ohio as we speak. And they didn't plan on doing this in Colorado. There were some individuals in the state of Colorado that had some money that decided to go through legislative council and the title board with some language that was suitable to IOTR's requirements. And they got through the title board with, they filed 6 different iterations of the constitutional right to hunt and fish. And they came out of that with 3 that actually passed muster. And they did their polling on the 3, and they decided to run with the most viable, which is Initiative 302, which I need to emphasize is, as we go forward, this will not be Initiative 302 once it's on the ballot. That's through the signature gathering process.
Gotcha.
And if you remember, and I'll remind people, during the 127 campaign, it was Initiative 91, and 91. And people kept starting to say, vote no on 91 or vote yes on 91. And it's like, okay, 91's not even going to be on the ballot.
Yeah.
So if this passes muster, they get the required signatures, they get certified, this will be on the ballot for a constitutional right to hunt and fish in the state of Colorado, which will set the tone and narrative and provide a level of additional tools in the toolbox that we've not had, that other states have been able to capitalize on. And this would make Colorado the 25th state in the nation to have the constitutional right to hunt and fish, the first of being Vermont in 1777. Stop and think of that. 1777, the state of Vermont.
249 years ago.
Yeah, they said, we need this. And it's taken other states this long to get on board, not all of them. But it's going to set the tone and narrative on how we continue to defend science-based wildlife management and the North American model of wildlife conservation within that context, and set the tone and narrative for what needs to be done for generations to come.
So right now there's a signature gathering going on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. The signature gathering that's going on right now, they've been going for about 2.5 weeks. They have until August 4th. They have around 150 circulators that are getting petitions signed around the state of Colorado. This is still the infancy stages of that whole process. I mean, it's not even fully functional yet, and they're already getting that much enthusiasm.
Cool.
And so I'm hopeful that we can probably bring this to some sort of relevancy to the general public. And I think people need to understand the importance of this. And if you got a minute, I'll read this entire initiative to you.
Yeah.
This is what will be in the Blue Book, and it needs to be emphasized on some of these components that we've heard criticism from the opposition already, even though it's just in the signature gathering phase. But it says, an amendment to the Colorado Constitution creating a constitutional right to hunt and fish and harvest fish and wildlife by traditional methods, including all species of fish and wildlife managed by the state, except non-game species, endangered species, or any species that is illegal to hunt under federal law, and in connection therewith, establishing hunting and fishing as the preferred means of managing fish and wildlife populations, and preserving the right of the state to regulate hunting, fishing, and wildlife management if necessary for sound scientific wildlife conservation and management, public safety, or to preserve the future of hunting and fishing opportunities for all species. Now, I want to emphasize real quick, this does not give the people the unequivocal authority from January 1st to December 31st to go out there and kill what they want or try to chase what they want and do it where they want, like on private property or public reserves or whatever.
Yep.
There's still the adherence to exactly what we have under the Colorado Revised Statutes 33.1.101, which is the mission of Colorado Parks and Wildlife. But this codifies it constitutionally that legislators can't change it,
Right.
that the general public could try to change it, but they got to go back to change the Constitution again.
Right.
And this is probably going to be such a significant undertaking, financially, messaging, strategy-wise, that if this does pass, we are confident that we won't have to deal with the things that we've been having to deal with over the last 8+ years, if not longer. And you know, look, we don't want to take the privileges away from anybody to voice their opinion.
Right.
But as I said during the 127 campaign, and I joke about it on our podcast, the Through the Gates podcast, and everybody else's podcast that I'm on, I don't want the donut guy in Denver, and I've had the donut guy hit me up, so that's why I use him. He says, "What's wrong with donut guys?" And I'm like, "Nothing." But I don't want the surgeon telling the donut guy how to make donuts, and I don't want the donut guy saying how to manage wildlife.
Yeah.
I don't want the UPS guy managing wildlife. I don't want uneducated people just being able to check the box, yes or no. Should we or should we not harvest this or allow for that? This codifies in the Constitution that the science-based wildlife management will allow for these to happen if science says that it can.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, that's, you think about the cumulative efforts ahead of you that could be just made moot if you are able to pass this ballot initiative. So signatures by August, on the ballot in November.
Yeah, November 3rd is the election date. Yeah. So there's a certification period that once the signatures are gathered, it's roughly 125,000 signatures that are needed, but they have to be certified because on a constitutional amendment, you have to get the signatures. 2% of each one of the signatures of the total signatures has to come from each one of the 35 Senate districts. And then you have to pass muster to get it across the finish line. You have to win by a 55% margin, not 50 plus 1.
Right. Okay. So that's where people need to understand when you do a ballot initiative to amend a constitution in every state I'm aware of, it's a higher threshold than if it's just a ballot initiative to, in effect, pass a law.
Which didn't used to be the case because in Colorado back in 96 on the constitutional amendment 14, they won that by 52 to 48%. When they raised the bar standard that even our good buddy Gaspar Perricone helped along with, it helped on some things. It didn't necessarily help on things that we might want, but I'm not gonna turn around and say that we should have done this or we should have done that. Back in 96, all they needed was 50 plus 1, and they got 52.
Right. Yeah.
If that would have been today and they were trying to get that would have not have passed. And the reason that's important is because if you look at the ballot initiative that we just won on 127, we won that by 55 to 45%. If that was a constitutional amendment, then we would have turned around and knocked that down.
Right.
On Ordinance 308, which was the fur ban in the city and county of Denver, we won that by 57 to 43%.
Right.
The polling on this shows really, really good. But understand, too, when we polled during 127 and subsequent to that, and when IOTR has done their polling, I mean, it's about 86% of all registered voters that were polled, Democrat, Independent, and Republican alike, approve of regulated science-based hunting practices, 86%. Now, it goes down from there depending on how much you want to throw at the wall and see what sticks. Should you use a crossbow or can you use this or should you do that? I mean, but as far as regulated hunting for science-based wildlife management, 86% approve.
Yeah.
We don't need 86, but we darn sure take 70. Because, I think that sets the tone and narrative as well. And if you look at what other states have done and what we would have to do to get this done in future states, you have to have an approval rating that is going to be sufficient, because what you don't want to do is lose.
Right.
Then you hand the keys.
You're like fumbling in your own red zone then.
Yeah. I mean, you hand the keys to the Emerald City. And which is funny because I said that about our governor, and somebody else did a story here not too long ago, like last week, and it showed him, the wizard, behind the screen, and it showed all the Wizard of Oz characters in front of him. And I thought, we've been talking on the same level. Maybe somebody listened to my podcast. I'll send you that post, because it's just like I guess he's a wizard. He's not the one wizard I'd want to go see, but he's a wizard.
Well, and a lot of people might say, why now? Well, I think that gets back to your point of playing offense, is because if we can play some good offense now, we don't have to play defense down the road. Exactly. And I want to just give a little perspective. I have no idea what a campaign like this has to cost, Dan, but it's got to be in the millions.
We're figuring from start to finish, $10 to $12 million.
Yeah. So Montana in 2004, our legislature got the 2/3 votes necessary. So in Montana, we have a little bit different process. One of the options is the legislature can 100 votes in the legislature we got 50 senators, 100 reps, needs 2/3 of their approval to put a constitutional ballot initiative out there. Not a regular ballot initiative, but a constitutional one. So we got that in the legislative session of, I think it was 2003. So then we had the ballot initiative in 2004. And it passed 80.6% to 19.4%. Mm-hmm. But here's where I'm getting at the money. If you look at the amount of registered campaign finance spent for that initiative, you're going to laugh at this. Montanans for our hunting and fishing heritage, proponents of this amendment, donated $199 towards the measure. That was it.
I just vomited in my mouth.
But the point is, if people think this is expensive today, it's going to be more expensive next year, and the next year, and the next year.
Yeah.
And the momentum that you have right now, and the relationships, the credibility, the infrastructure you've established, there's no guarantee that's going to still be there 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So the time to play offense is right now. You've got the ball, and you've got the players,
and you've got the strategy. Yeah, and if anybody was a Denver Broncos fan when John Elway went out and got Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to compare Luke Hilgeman or Travis Thompson, who are going to listen to this with IOTR, as Peyton Manning. Although Luke played football, and he might have been able to be Peyton Manning's offensive lineman. But you take advantage and you go all in with the situation that you have, whether it's finances, whether it's players, whether it's strategy, no matter what it is, because you look at, and there again, going back to my sports analogy, and people are going to get sick and tired of this, but you have free agency, and you've got drafts, and you've got injuries, and you've got contract disputes, and you've got a variety of different things. Plus, you have to have people together that are going to mesh together to make sure that they know which play they're going to run, and they're all going to run it effectively, and they're not worried about anybody else getting the credit for it.
Yeah.
That's what I refer back to, because I think we've been doing what we needed to do to just kind of plug along. Never went to the Super Bowl. We always maybe made it to the AFC Championship game. We were always in the playoffs. We were always winning the last 8-9 years, but we just never made it to the end game. Yeah. But we never had the ball to do it. Now we've got a pretty good ground game. There again, my anti-friends are going to sit and listen to this stuff and go, now we know what the playbook is. Now we know what he's going to do. And it's like, I'm not doing anything besides doing exactly what we did before. So I would tell them, you better get ready. You better get ready.
Well, what's the old Latin phrase? Fortune favors the bold or the brave, depending on which interpretation of it is. So
and I think that capitalizing on the moment. A friend of mine said, when we did the 127 campaign, actually he helped me formulate. We did it together, co-founded CRWM, and he stepped aside to do some of the wolf issues about 2022. So he was part of this effort with CRWM for about 6 years. And he said, I believe that you're the right guy, the right time, right place, right message for the right reason. And I'm thinking, how come somebody else couldn't have been that guy? I mean, I was the dummy that stood in line to file the paperwork in 2016. And we'd been doing this stuff, but we just did it, haphazardly. We did it subpar, but we didn't have to turn around and up our game to a level because, with all due respect, I mean, John Hickenlooper, who's a senator, U.S. senator now, he was the governor in Colorado. I was appointed by Governor Hickenlooper, and I was appointed by Governor Polis to the Habitat Stamp Committee, and I didn't vote for either one of them. But I would turn around and, I mean, if those were the two standing in line today, I would take John Hickenlooper over Jared Polis to mow my yard or take me to dinner or turn around and be governor, or it wouldn't matter. You take the situation that you have before you and figure out what you could do with it. But what I would tell any of your listeners and any of our listeners, that if you're contemplating having to figure out a way to put up a barrier or a roadmap of options and detours, don't wait for it to happen, because it's going to happen. I've got friends of mine in Idaho that, about 2018 and 19 told me, Dan, we don't have to worry about Idaho. Idaho is bulletproof. Well, then COVID came along and everybody started exiting Oregon, Washington, and California. And then those same people called me and said, how the hell do you deal with all these people? They want to come here and change everything. And I'm like, you told me you didn't have a problem. They said, well, we didn't. Well, I utilize those statements that nobody ever wants Terminix or Orkin, and I'm a pest control guy, to show up at their house until they have termites. Well, by then it's too late. The damage has already been done. And I think on wildlife management and conservation issues, prepare. Start your coalition, start your efforts, make sure that you know who your enemy is, make sure you got some finances in the bank, make sure you got your partnerships, and start planning on what you need to do now as opposed to what you have to do in the future.
Well, all of that is so valid. It's, so many of the things you hear in business and in communications. The one I have written on my whiteboard is tell your story, because if someone else tells your story, it's not going to be the story you want told. And that's really what you have to do. You have to be assertive. You have to, it's another way of saying going on the offensive. And you guys are doing a really good job of that in Colorado. I think so many of us are watching, going back to what you learned from the Wolf Ballot Initiative, what happened with the fur ban and all that other stuff. We're learning an awful lot about how you can be effective in a state where maybe on the surface, a lot of people say, well, all the noise on the Front Range out in Denver, that's against you guys. Well, you guys do a good job of dissecting that, learning what the messaging is, how to do it, because you've hired really good people to do it, who know how to do it. And that, I think that's one thing a lot of times we see in some of these spats or battles in the political sphere, is the hunting and fishing community relies on volunteers who they're not trained in this stuff. And they do their damnedest, do the best they can. Boy, they just really give everything. But they just don't have the training. They don't have the money. They don't have the relationships. If you got someone who this is their daily life, they know how the drill works. So you go hire the best you can, because they live it, they breathe it. It's what their daily life is, whether it's on, up on the Capitol. They know all the players. They know the process. They know the people. They know the staffers. Those are the people you want to have in your camp, and they cost money. But I've heard you say it before, and I agree with this 100%. I'm here to win. I'm not here to stay busy.
I got plenty of stuff to stay busy on, Randy.
I'm here to win. So,
I mean, some of my counterparts, and some of them you've met, some of them you knew before you and I got together, but some of them are such experts in their field, but I'll use the football analogy just because it's relevant. 1985 Chicago Bears. Jim McMahon was the quarterback. He was not the guy that you would probably pick out of the lineup. But for Mike Ditka, the coach at the time, he said, I want Jim McMahon. And then they got the refrigerator Perry, and then they had Walter Payton, and they turned around. I mean, they
win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And so I compare myself, not in the caliber of play by any means, but I'm the non-contemporary Jim McMahon with a beard, because I'm not one of the strategy guys. Gaspar Pericone and I, who sit on the chair and the vice chair side of things for the Colorado Wildlife Conservation Project, and I joke with him. He and I like peas and carrots, or yin and yang, or oil and vinegar, or whatever the hell it is. But we get together and we actually do pretty good, and we're not doing it by ourselves. We got a hell of a coalition that we represent. But Gaspar is the quintessential strategy, the politician strategy.
Yeah.
And he looks at me sometimes, I know, wide-eyed, and go, I don't know where the hell you come up with that stuff, but yeah, it works. Let's go ahead and do that. And I think that sort of stuff is something that every state has available to them if they just take the time and make the effort to get those players together.
Yeah.
And I could talk all day about what we've done, but we didn't do it by ourselves. We did it with the help and the support and the partnership. I just got off the phone with the Wild Sheep Foundation, and they're willing to continue to help support our efforts at a variety of different levels. You can't have non-member organizations like CRWM, who's doing the boots on the ground advocacy side, if you don't have support from all the other organizations.
Right.
I mean, we could do fundraisers and stuff, but we don't have the resources. I mean, there's 12 of us. And then you got a bunch of girls in the Women of Conservation calendar that are willing to just sacrifice whatever and say, where do you want us? What do you want us to do? How long do you want us to be there? What do you want us to say?
Yeah.
It's a message that everybody benefits off of, whether they understand or agree with all of it.
Yeah.
And it just takes a team to turn around and make things work.
Yeah. And, that's the other part that's important for people to understand is everybody can contribute in some way. A lot of people think you got to be out in the front and be the spokesperson or whatever to make a difference. No, the entire effort, it might be people driving around one afternoon and putting up yard signs. It might be somebody who, hey, I'm really busy, but I know these other people here and I can enroll their help and their favors. It's the opportunity to participate and make a difference. I don't care where you live in Colorado and what your profession is, what your skill set is, how old you are, what your background is. There is some way that every hunter and angler in Colorado can help with this campaign for this constitutional ballot initiative. And I want people to know that and feel empowered by that.
If nothing else, the thing that I would compare this to is, if you lived in a subdivision or a city, or maybe it's a good comparison or analogy about the ranching community. I know ranchers that have lived for generations next to somebody else. Some of them have married each other. They don't speak. There's been bad blood, kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys. But by God, when a fire came along, they all showed up with their equipment. They all showed up to turn around and move the stock. They all showed up to turn around and haul water. They were willing to turn around. Why? Because it was a fight that they needed to engage in. And I think that what we started to see out of the 127 campaign on mountain lions is when we started that in the early stages of September 2023, the average person said, well, good luck. You're going to lose that. But I don't hunt mountain lions, so it doesn't really bother me. Doesn't affect me. You had to actually paint the story for them. And once you could actually convince them that that they would be next, what's the difference between upland bird hunters? You're using dogs. They don't want you to use dogs on mountain lions. Why are you any different?
Right.
Well, they'd start paying attention to that. When they started hearing statements from the animal activists saying, why are we even hunting the bighorn sheep? Why are we turning around and allowing them to kill our trophy bighorn sheep? Well, then some of the sheep people start paying attention. Some of those guys had killed mountain lions before, didn't need any more mountain lions, didn't want to hunt any more mountain lions, were too damn old to go hunt mountain lions, hated dogs because dogs licked them and peed on them and they stunk. But they were willing to turn around and say, if the guy wants to do that, why shouldn't I support it? to turn around and make sure that it can continually be done, because they saw the attacks come out of all these other things. And I think this in itself, with the constitutional right to hunt and fish, whether you 100% comprehend or agree with it, if you hunt and if you fish, it benefits you. And if you read the language of it and what it does and what it codifies and what it justifies and what it plants in concrete, is the ability to continue to do exactly what we do, in no way, shape, or form to be altered unless you're going to change the Constitution.
Right.
And I think that that's where people could understand and say, maybe the mountain lion deal wasn't my cup of tea, but how could this not be my cup of tea?
Yeah.
If you're looking to explore your opportunities to hunt out west, maybe try Colorado. If you're trying to get information about bighorn sheep, elk, deer, private land, public land, maybe it's everything that you want to do as far as pack-in trips. Maybe it's just having a pack trip decided for you, and then when you get there, you just hunt out of a drop camp. Make sure you check out the Colorado Outfitters Association. Colorado Outfitters Association here in the state of Colorado has got a numerous amount of outfitters that are members, and they can supply you with whatever you're looking to try to acquire and what you want to do for the hunt of a lifetime. For more information, check out the coloradooutfitters.org and make sure that you let them know that you heard about them with Through the Gates, and let them know that you're trying to continue to save the hunt in the state of Colorado.
In the world of throwaway furniture, the folks at Rustic Living are creating heirloom furniture the right way. Each of their over 3,000 designs start with hand-selected aspens, milled and kiln-dried in-house to ensure your piece, whether it's a bed, table, dresser, or anything else, lasts forever and beyond. Their artisans hand-sand, hand-fit, and hand-finish each piece. It's craftsmanship that you can see and feel. I personally own a number of the pieces and absolutely recommend Rustic Living to anyone who wants to turn their cabin or farmhouse into a true mountain home. At Through the Gates, we constantly talk about sustainable use of the resource. Rustic Living has a long-standing relationship with the U.S. Forest Service, hand-selecting stands and trees to ensure our forests remain healthy and your furniture lasts for generations. Rustic Living, right out of Alamosa, Colorado. Stop in on your next adventure through the great San Luis Valley or visit their website at rusticliving.com. Listen to the advice of Cameron Haynes and support companies that are supporting your cause and your efforts. Minturn Anglers is one of those companies. Minturn Anglers provides product and fishing excursions in Colorado and are second to none. For more information, go to minturnanglers.com.
Well, I'll give some background of living in a state now that for 22 years has had that. My constitutional right as a citizen of Montana, of our Constitution that was, well, Montana rewrote its Constitution in 1972, I think it was, 72, I think. But, we amended it there just 32 years later to add the constitutional right to hunt and fish. Every attorney I talked to has said, you know what? In 22 years, that has not been litigated. No one has even ventured near there. Mm-hmm. But many of the other constitutional rights granted to citizens under the Montana Constitution have been upheld. And they feel that's why a lot of groups look at Montana and say, man, we go in there and mess around. We are actually infringing on someone's constitutional right.
Yes.
This is different than a law that says, here's the speed limit, or a law that says this is what we define as trespass, or this is what we define as polluting, or whatever. This is a right. And very few people want to be in court trying to ask a jury or a judge, hey, could you take their rights away?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the level of benefit that comes with these type of constitutional initiatives. It brings it to that level where it can't be discounted. The courts can't treat it as a convenience or an inconvenience. They have to look at it as one of the rights granted to us as a citizen of that state. Kind of like, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their creator So,
well, if you listen to the opposition, our adversaries that are criticizing the signature gathering process right now, well, they don't want this to go to the ballot.
Well, no, they don't.
But if you listen to them and they're like, hunting is already legal. Nobody's trying to ban hunting. And it's like, really? Well, what about the last legislative session? What about the last ballot cycle? What about through the commission?
Yeah.
Those people that are saying that are almost like they're paid spokespeople because they can't really believe that unless they haven't been paying attention to the commission or the legislature or the last ballot cycle. Nobody's trying to do this. Well, that's not really true.
Yeah.
You might not want it to happen for a variety of different reasons. And we've seen even so-called, and I quote, air quotes, sportsmen come out and say, we don't want this.
Yeah.
But their idea of hunting is different than somebody else's idea of hunting. And these guys that come out of the woodwork that are pretty much from the Cats Aren't Trophies campaign, the Center for Biological Diversity, they maybe hunt. Maybe they bought a license when they were 14 or something. I don't know. I'm not going to argue whether they hunt or whether they don't. But I could tell you that if they think that the only form of hunting should be deer and elk hunting, they're misguided.
Right.
They're uninformed. They're uneducated. We've got 78 game species in the state of Colorado, 961 species of wildlife, 7,000 invertebrates that have just been added to the list, pollinators and a variety of arachnids. I mean, if it crawls in the state of Colorado, it's managed in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Those people that are talking about, that are supposed hunters that say this isn't necessary, I think are not only misguided, I think that they're agenda driven because they're trying to turn around and push and poke and prod. It's the same type of people that would be appointed to this commission under this governor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's when you hear people say, well, we're not taking it away or it's not necessary. What we heard when Montana's came up, people said, well, they could give you a 1-day hunting season and you'd still have the right. It'd just be 1 day. Well, if you want to try that, you go right ahead because it's not going to meet any of the science-based stuff. It's not going to meet any of the other things. And that's why I think your language is really, really interesting because it includes all this science-based stuff, which kind of is hunters raising their hands saying, hey, if we can't justify what we're doing based on science, okay, we're probably not going to get this blanket protection that some people might think that we'll get. No, it still has to fall within all the science-based criteria. If I'm reading what you said correctly or interpreting what you read there, Dan. And I think that's what gives it an awful lot of strength and legs in the name or in the idea of just maybe the average Colorado citizen who maybe doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. It's like, yeah, science-based. Yeah, I want things science-based. Especially in today's world when hardly anyone trusts anything. It's like, all right, let's just go based on what the science tells us.
Well, and there's people arguing already because there's the same ones that we've been arguing about for the last 10 years. But what this entire process does, when people talk about traditional methods, so what are traditional? And I'll read what the definition of the traditional methods are. Traditional methods means the standard, currently legal ways people hunt, fish, and harvest fish and wildlife in Colorado. This includes archery, firearms, fishing rods, and other common gear and humane practices that sportsmen and women have used for generations. A constitutional shield protecting normal legal hunting and fishing practices. It safeguards the ordinary methods Coloradans already use today, makes it harder for future laws or rules to ban these methods without a strong science base like wildlife conservation or public safety, and it recognizes hunting and fishing as part of Colorado's heritage. It says in here what it is not. This constitutional right is not. It does not give you unlimited rights. You still need licenses. You need to follow seasons. You need to have bag limits. You have to have safety rules. You have to have permission to access private land. It is not a freeze on all rules, and the state can still make reasonable regulations. And then it does not protect brand new or experimental gear, cruel or illegal practices. The bottom line is that it protects the way most Coloradans hunt and fish now while keeping experts in charge of conservation. Period.
There you go. Well, I'm excited to see where this comes in. 2 years ago when you guys had your Cats Are Trophies initiative, I'm trying to remember exactly where I was. I was up on a mountain and I was out of coverage for a little while. And I'm trying to get a little bit of coverage, and I get a message from Gaspar. It just I got enough coverage to download a couple texts. And when he said that you guys won, I'm trying to remember where I was, but I gave out a big hoop and yell and fist punch to the sky, and it was just for me, as someone who's like you has been engaged in this advocacy policy stuff for 30 years. It was just a big relief that, all right, some folks have shown us the path. And I think listening to that language there and how you guys are approaching this, it shows how much you guys, I don't know if I'd say have learned, but where you guys are at in terms of that leadership of knowledge, leadership of strategy, funding, knowing how to do this. And I'm excited. I hope I'm standing on a mountain again in November and get to do another fist punch when you text me and say, hey, guess what, Randy? We won.
Well, and it's interesting that the excitement that you felt, I was asked by our strategy experts and Gaspar, come to the watch party at the Brown Palace Hotel, downtown Denver, night of the election. I said, I have no want, desire. I fought 80 to 100 hours a week for 14 months.
Yeah.
And for me to stand around there in the chance that we would lose, I thought it'd be best if I just stayed at home, and I didn't drink that night, but if I stayed at home and just drown in my sorrows if we did lose. And as the polls started to come in and realized that what we did was not only a phenomenal feat, it was remarkable in the sense to where you were talking to the I-25 corridor, essentially from Castle Rock, Colorado Springs to Castle Rock, all the way to the Wyoming state line.
Yeah.
25 miles east of the I-25 corridor, 25 miles west of the I-25 corridor. That's where the general population is. Yeah. And that for us to see the swell and the margin of victory that we got, it was emotional enough in the sense to where people made the right decision.
Yeah.
Especially when we were told the whole damn time that we would never win because people didn't really consider anything that was viable of what we were trying to do. And they were using the Wolf ballot initiative as a sounding board, as a measuring stick.
Yep.
And so if we're able to pull something off like this and codify this for future generations, and justify it for current generations, and give the agency, this agency, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, give them the ability to turn around and have a little bit of an umbrella, a little bit of an armor suit, a little bit of an idea on the sportsmen and women and the state of Colorado as a whole, support our efforts as science-based wildlife managers to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
If we can do that, I don't know if it's a sign of legacy or what CRWM and the community and the partners have done, but maybe there's a little glimmer of hope about getting something done that's actually right, as opposed to just hoping that it's always going to get better by standing on the street corner. Yeah. And I think there's an opportunity here and a lesson to be learned for other states as well.
Oh, that's what I tell people. There's people across the country who listen to this podcast. And, when you were on a couple of years ago and we talked about the Cats Are Trophies one, maybe people are tired of me saying this, but what you see happening in Colorado and Oregon, those are the two states I really see a lot of it from a ballot initiative, from a legislative standpoint. You better be paying attention. Because that stuff shows up in Nevada, it shows up in Florida, it shows up in Arizona and New Mexico, and it shows up in these other places. And you guys are showing us an awful lot about the path forward and the strategies and tactics. But I know one of those requirements, and this is when I went back and told you it only cost Montanans $199 to promote our
my yearly service on a game camera cost me more than that now.
It was 22 years ago, Dan. But don't you guys have some? I was out on your Facebook page. You guys have some trip raffles coming up that are fundraisers. Is that fundraising to help with this?
Help with this and to help the sustainability. I mean, when you go through a legislative session and a commission session at the same time to the number we did, and it was different this year than what it was previously, because this is the last legislative session that our governor will get the chance to be part of.
Yeah.
And it's the last round of commission appointments that he's able to be part of in this calendar year. And so when you come out of that, you spend a hell of a lot of money to be able to turn around and make that stuff work. Not to mention the day-to-day operational things about accounting and lobbying efforts, and just look at the travel and look at the hotels. And I mean, like I said, I would 9 nights is what I spent at the house. Well, it's not because I wanted to stay in a hotel room somewhere else. It's because I couldn't afford 4.5 hours to drive and sit in traffic trying to get there every morning.
Yep.
And so if you're going to fight, you have to have the tools and the resources. And no matter who, going back to my football analogies, no matter who thinks they're the baddest team on the planet, they need shoulder pads, cups, and helmets. And that costs money to be able to put those people on the field, or you're going to have a lot of people on injured reserve that just don't want to play football anymore. And I think the two raffles that SCI, the Colorado chapter of SCI, is doing on our behalf are similar to what they've done the last several years. And we've got a Hill Ranch elk hunt at the infamous Hill Ranch in southern Colorado. This is the place that guys like the Eastmans and Cameron Haynes and Lee and Tiffany Lukowski hunt. And Bobby Hill and Dottie Hill offered to give us one that we could raffle. And that drawing deadline is June 12th. The drawing will be June 15th. Now, this is a hunt. It's a Ranching for Wildlife program. And this, I want to emphasize for people that don't know what Ranching for Wildlife is, that's not high fenced. Yep. This Ranching for Wildlife program that is available to residents unless it's donated, and it can be a non-resident deal.
Okay.
And so this is a 34-point hunt. 34 preference points is what it would take somebody to draw this year.
And only if you were a resident.
Only if you were a resident. And so when
in the raffle, it can be residents or non-residents.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so to look at what we've done with that historically, this is something where you can actually plan on seeing probably more quality elk than what you would see in most places. I would emphasize, given the fact of who actually has hunted there and how you would actually be able to do this. But 34 points. And so I had a guy the other day, and I won't call him by name. So if he gets mad, it's about the donut guy. I mean, he could get mad too. But the guy emailed me on the website, and he says, well, you should have said specified this was an A or a B list license. And he said, because if I was to draw through the state draw, and then I won this, then I would have to turn one of those in. And I'm thinking, well, you're not going to be applying for some other place. Then you turn that one in and get your preference points back, then go to hunt this one, because you're never going to hunt this one. And you got 20 points here. You'll be 963 years old by the time you ever draw this thing. Yeah. And so this is a quality elk hunt. And for that, you can go to scicolorado.org. scicolorado.org.
Okay.
And if nobody can remember that, they can always go to savethehuntcolorado.com and punch the link, and it'll take you to that other website.
Okay.
But it's scicolorado.org. And then we've got another raffle, which is done by one of our board members, and it's Luke Weedle, and it's with Reel, REEL, fishing charters out of Sitka, Alaska. And Luke does halibut and salmon and lingcod fishing, and it's for a party of two. It's for the 27-28 season, and it's lodging and food. Doesn't include airfare, but it's lodging and food, the boat, all the stuff. You can go to scicolorado.org for that one as well.
Okay. Or
Both of
save
those.
both
Or-
of those
yep.
also, because I'm looking on
Yep.
the website here. It says savethehuntcolorado.com.
Yeah, and that if you just go to that, it's just a link that takes you to their website. But there was a lot of people that they've followed us for so long that save the hunt, save the hunt, save the hunt, and then you throw them another website, and it's like your link doesn't work. It's like that's not our link. It's
Not that I want to encourage anyone to use Facebook if they don't have to, but if they do go to your Facebook page, all the links are there.
Yeah, all the links are there, and you can do it on Instagram and Facebook stuff. And we've been advertising it on our podcast too, with the Through the Gates podcast.
Yeah.
And those are two options that you could do. And the reason we say that is because you can buy a ticket, or you can buy 3 tickets, $50 a ticket, or $100 for 3. And it's something that you can contribute to the cause. All the money goes to CRWM and helping to support our efforts to fight the fight. But you can donate money, and at the same time have a chance of getting something back.
Right.
Now, it's I'm not the best fundraiser in the world. We got other people that are trying to help us do that. But if you decide down the road through this endeavor that we're getting into on the constitutional right to hunt and fish, or if you just want to help us continue to fight at the Capitol and with the commission, you can go to savethehuntcolorado.com. You can click on the donate button, and it'll take you the opportunity to be able to turn around and kick some money in, $5, $50, $100, whatever the hell somebody wants to do. Because as you said, Randy, this stuff isn't cheap.
No.
And for our case, like Oregon and Washington, it's reoccurring. It just doesn't stop. It's like a bad odor in the bathroom. You got to open the window, or you got to get air freshener or something. But this stuff just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
Well,
I kind of like I challenged the audience a couple of years ago is look at what you spent when you applied for Colorado this year. Maybe you spent with your base license, your app fees or whatever, $120. If you can't donate the same amount to the future of hunting and fishing in Colorado, please think about it twice. I mean, we probably could all figure out a way to do that. And you guys do more good with such small amount of money. It's impressive.
Thank you.
And the more money you guys have, the more good you'll do. Or the term I always say, if this is good, more is gooder. My wife hates it. My wife hates it when I say gooder. I've got to the point now where I say gooder a lot, even in public, and people look at me and my wife just rolls her eyes like, he graduated top in his class. Don't listen to him now. But
so you are from Wisconsin, aren't you?
Minnesota, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those Wisconsin guys, they got their own language. But no, I hope people would also think about that. We can donate without the necessity of having to get a raffle ticket for that. And it's great. Either one is fine. Yeah. But it takes money. You can't do this on a bake sale. And
no, and we've gotten to a point now to where things are so tightly budgeted, because for anybody that hasn't done a fight, hasn't had to do a fight, it's almost insurmountable to them to think that they have to do 2 or 3 fights at once. And that's why I tell people, get your ducks in a row. Make sure you got your offense and your defense and your special teams formulated. I'll give a shout out. The guys down at Hunt, I was a Conserve and Protect Arizona with Chuck Podolak down there. I mean, they did a phenomenal job of getting their ducks in a row and getting started. The Robert Espinosas of the world down in New Mexico formulated a branch of, only in name, not in affiliation, a branch of the New Mexicans for responsible wildlife management, because they wanted to be part of a successful operation in the team. This is something you have to plan for. People plan on hunts for years.
Yeah. The guy who's got 34 points. He's been planning on this hunt for 34 years.
Yeah. Planning on these hunts for years, and where you're going to go and what are you going to do and who you're going to talk to and where you're going to apply. And all of a sudden when you draw, what outfitter you're going to go with, or what landowner you're going to do, or how much time you're going to spend before season or after season, or whatever it might be. I know guys, as soon as they come home from elk season, They're already planning on what they're going to do next year, the year after that, and the year after that. And that doesn't include what they're going to do with the family. I mean,
You talking? Who are you talking about there, Dan?
it's like, and every one of your listeners is probably doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Plan on the inevitable that's coming when somebody's trying to take it away, because it's not a matter of when, if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the preparation. A lot of people have life insurance policies, or health insurance policies, or car insurance, or house insurance, disability insurance. You do that for the inevitable because it's going to happen at some point. Now, maybe you aren't the unlucky one, but we know that we're all going to die.
Right.
I mean, that's the one thing. And we know that we're all probably going to have health insurance at some point in time.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you turn around and try to build up a reserve as a health insurance plan for your future hunting capabilities? And I think that states, organizations, entities, legislatures that are supportive of these science-based practices should be able to figure out a way to do that in preparation for what's in the inevitable.
Yeah. And this is one thing that when I was reading some of the comments of back from 2 years ago, some people are like, well, that's what I buy a license for. That's what the department's supposed to do. It's like, no, just about every state has whatever you'd want to call it, anti-advocacy or silence rules for their wildlife agency. You can be an informational witness. You can be whatever. But you watch them at a commission meeting, they can't show up and say, yeah, we're in favor of this political idea or that political idea. They're there. They could maybe answer some questions. So anyone who thinks that your license fees and your taxes, your excise taxes on your equipment should go to fight this, it can't. That goes to state agencies. And every state legislature I know of, including my state and your state, has told their wildlife agencies, no, you can only be here as an informational witness to answer questions.
Yep.
You cannot take a position. You cannot actively be doing anything that promotes or advocates for a certain position on a political action. So
now you'll see that on this. The agency won't be allowed to take a position on the constitutional right to hunt and fish. And the antis will use that as a weapon to weaponize.
Say, why aren't they in favor of it?
Exactly, because they can't be. They didn't come out in opposition to the Cats Aren't Trophy campaign on 127. However, remember, SWEPA, the State Wildlife Employee Protective Association, I think the Game Warden Association, they came out first time in 60 some odd years that they ever took a stand on something. They could do that because they weren't employees anymore.
Correct.
But the union voted and turned around and came out and said, no, we don't support this. This is BS. Leave it up to the experts. And I think if we had the ability to be able to do more of that, if I had a choice, the one thing I'd like to be able to do is run a piece of legislation that would give the agency an opportunity to actually voice their concern. And the reason I say that, go back to March 4th and 5th, where the commission was undertaking the commercial fur ban citizens petition, and the agency and the director, the new hired director of the agency, came out with letters of recommendation for denial, 11, 12, 13-page documents. Now, the commission ignored it, but if they could speak on behalf of stuff that's coming before the commission, why can't they speak on stuff that's coming before the legislature or before the people?
Right.
And I think that those, and I think that would be another bill that we could turn around and try to run, or maybe I don't think you'd want to run a ballot initiative on it, but if you have experts there, wouldn't you want them to tell you that, hey, we've got a problem, or no, we don't have a problem?
Yeah.
I would.
You're making too much sense, Dan.
Well, it's like going to your doctor and you say, okay, what'd you find out? Well, I really can't tell you. Yeah, but you took a look at it, you saw the x-rays, you saw the test. Yeah, but I just can't tell you. Well, why do we do it then?
Well, the law says I can't tell you.
So you might not be able to tell the next guy about me, but you should be able to tell me about me.
Yeah. No, it's the world we operate in. It's what the sideboards are. And I throw that out there because I just want people to understand this is not your agency's job. This is our job. put our shoulder to the wheel. It's a steep grade sometimes, but if all of us have our shoulder to the wheel, we're going to get that wagon to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
And it's going to be worth it when we get it there. And well, Dan, here's why we're doing this now. You're coming to my part of the woods here in a couple weeks.
I know it, and I was just disheartened because I remember when we talked in 2024, and we said we need to get together in the spring and trap beavers somewhere, and we need to get together somewhere and try to cage trap bobcats and just do something. You know, it's frightful that all we do when we do these things is advocate for them, but then we don't ever get together with different people that spend so much time and effort to see the victories. We need to change that in some way, shape, or form. But
let's figure that out.
Yeah, but I'm going to be up there. I'm going to do the Meat Eater podcast. I'm doing the Wild Sheep podcast. I think Jason Matzinger and I are going to get together. And it's nice to see. It's kind of like getting the band back together in the sense to where the sportsman community, the conservation community sees the value. And they also, a buddy of mine said, people want to be part of a winning team.
Oh yeah.
And,
for sure.
and we didn't lay an egg. We didn't shoot craps in 2024, but we've been winning since then on multiple levels. We won prior to that. And it sets the roadmap and a playbook for maybe somebody else can find something that we did that is of use to them. And so you're going to be gone, but I wish I could stop in and see you because I like that restaurant you took me to. That was a good lunch.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it, but I know where I liked it.
It's called Storm Castle.
Okay.
But I, as a condition of marriage, I have to go walleye fishing every once in a while.
Oh,
and last weekend I did a fundraiser, so I canceled the walleye trip.
So you did.
I'm already on some really thin ice when it comes to walleye fishing trips. So nothing personal, Dan, but this has been on the books for a while. The cabin's been rented. So if I were to come up with some excuse, there would be no excuse good enough. I mean, if I died, she'd still say, "Get your butt in the boat. We're going fishing."
And I have a strong suspicion that this won't be the last time that we have a conversation about these type of things. And what would really be nice is to figure out a way to put our heads together collectively, the groups involved, and I've got some plans. I got some thoughts. I got some things in that rat in my cage running around in circles to where other states maybe shouldn't have to do things like what Colorado or Washington and Oregon and California and even New Mexico and other states have had to deal with. Yeah. And some of it's gaining traction. Some of it's gaining traction on a national level and a regional level. And I just would like to see if somebody would bite on it, because what we've done here is a proven method. And it wasn't just all about campaigns. It was all about preparation. Yeah. So,
well, your message resonates with a lot of people, and those, me and Meat Eater and Jason and Wild Sheep, all those folks you just mentioned, we all look at what you guys are doing, and we know this stuff is kind of like a virus. It doesn't respect state boundaries. I mean, it might work within a certain state boundary better than other places, but it's someday going to be on my doorstep.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you get so much support from people who, if I never get to hunt in Colorado ever again in my life, I would give that up to know that you guys could have this ballot initiative pass.
Well, you're a non-resident. We want to make sure you can hunt here. So, because it takes up 13 residents to make up for the money that you spend to turn around and come here. So anybody that's listening to that, that's why we need Randy Newberg and Cameron Haynes and everybody else to come here and spend good hard-earned money, because it's a beautiful state. It's got a magnificent wildlife resource. We've got more people than what I would like to see, but it's only going to get worse.
Well, I think there's what you just touched on there. Some people are going to be like, great, what about Joe Lunchbucket? Well, Joe and Jane Lunchbucket, if you want to call it that. Joe the plumber, remember when he ran and he was the popular guy back in a political race? Those people can, you guys in Colorado have kept your fees more reasonable than other states. and you've been generous to non-residents. So some of the states that are highly exclusionary to non-residents, if they were to try gain support from non-residents, it's a harder uphill fight for those states where it's just so, like Oregon gives 2% to 5%. And I'm not saying you support it or don't support it based on what your opportunity is in that state. But if you're a non-resident and you look at, wow, this is going on in the state that has the most reasonable fees for me, gives the most opportunity for us non-residents, it's a lot easier for them to get them to open their pocketbook up for something going on in Colorado.
Well,
So,
and Charles Whitlam and Mike Costello, when we fought the 127 campaign, they were very adamant with Howl for Wildlife, and they said something to the effect, and we coined this as well, that whether you're hunting in Colorado, whether you want to hunt in Colorado, whether you used to hunt in Colorado, whether you know somebody that's hunted in Colorado, this affects you.
Yep.
And this is something to where stop and think about the constitutional right to hunt and fish and it not being upheld, and things are changed either commission-wise or statutorily, not based upon science,
right,
that then prohibited or prevented, restricted individuals from coming to Colorado. Because here's the deal, Randy, the majority of Coloradans right now were not always residents.
Right.
They were non-residents that moved here for a variety of different reasons. I mean, they just didn't sit in Connecticut and Mississippi and Minnesota and then throw something at the wall and say, this is where I'm going to go. They'd been there before, and for a variety of reasons. And I think that every other state has that same thing. We are a country of transient populations with some native populations. And we just need to make sure that we protect our wildlife for all. And if we don't, I mean, who's going to do it for us?
Yeah. No, I'm a non-resident in 49 other states. And when the call to action comes for something like this in Montana, I hope I could count on some of our non-resident friends to do it. And I think we, in the hunting community, we too often use that resident, non-resident thing as just a way to complain. And
it's kind of like those two ranchers living next to each other. Hey, I want to mention real quick. Save CO Heritage.
Save CO Heritage.com. .org. That's the campaign site.
Yeah.
Okay. www.savecoheritage.org. In the video portion of this, we'll put a link. So a lot of people don't even know that we publish these podcasts on YouTube anymore, because they're or not anymore, but now they're so accustomed to listening to it on their phone or wherever they download podcast apps. Some of them I'll say, well, did you see the link when we put it in the video? They're like, you film these now? We'll make sure in the podcast description we'll put that in there, and then we'll put the link in the video portion. So
no, I appreciate your friendship, appreciate your partnership, appreciate your willingness to continue to help.
Absolutely, Dan. You know that anytime you call, I'll clear something other than my wife's walleye fishing.
Anytime except that.
I would have cleared time out of a spring bear hunt or a turkey hunt or spring beaver season or whatever to make this work. But
if I get stuck in a well and need a rope, I won't do it during walleye season. So.
No. That's the time where my schedule's least flexible in the summer.
Well, I hope you and your wife have a great trip out of it.
Well, I hope so. Maybe I'll send you a picture.
Thanks.
But thanks for all you do, Dan. Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management has really turned a page here in how I would say hunters were a little bit down in the dumps, maybe way down in the dumps about, boy, we just don't know how are we going to win? How are we going to win? And you guys have shown us how to win. And now that you're, as you say, on the offensive, now's the time. Take the ball, get it in the end zone. And I hope folks will go out there and donate. Where can they hear your podcast, Dan?
They can go to Through the Gates. It's Through the Gates podcast. And it's on iHeart and Spotify and YouTube.
All the normal places.
We're doing the video too, which is not what I wanted to do. No, nobody wants to sit and look at me for an hour. But the guys that did all this stuff that got us involved, they said if you want to do it right, do video too. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. My wife I'm sitting in the studio that we just finished, and which is funny because I didn't even know what a podcast was in 2023. And the first one I was on was the Meat Eater in person Mission Theater, their traveling podcast.
Okay.
And I thought, I don't know what this is, but then everybody started saying, "Holy cow, you were on a podcast!" I'm like, and now we've just actually Tuesday, I believe, is our 100th. We got 99. Next Tuesday is our 100th episode. Since we started, and I've done a plethora of other people's podcasts as well. So
you are one of the most traveled podcast guests I know.
Yeah, well, I'm always running from somebody or running to something. So
yeah. Well, I got to looking at the Hunt Talk Radio podcast. We started in July of 2015.
Okay.
Thanks. And here's a little background to it. The Meat Eater guys got a hold of me. They're like, Newberg, when we go hunting with you, you are so full of BS and stories and history and everything else. You need a podcast. I'm like, no, I want to record a radio show someday, like, so people could listen to it online. And they're like, hey, Nodhead, that's what a podcast is. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So
I need to do a podcast.
Yeah, they said, we feel your podcast would be so valuable, we will produce it for you. So they produced this Hunt Talk Radio podcast for the first 6 months.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Really?
And then they said, Randy, this is taking a lot of time. You know the ropes now. Time to swim on your own. So, yeah, that's how long this podcast has been around. It's coming up on 11 years. So.
Well, you know Robbie Denning. With Rockslide. Robbie came down to the last commission meeting and contributed some money to the Circle the Wagon social that we did the night before. And we had 250 people show up. And what's funny about that is the first legitimate podcast I was on, not the Mission Theater one with Meat Eater. The first one was with Rockslide, and it was on January 1st, 2024. And I was sitting in my pickup, and I was doing some damage control coyote work. And I was sitting in my pickup in the middle of BFE, and I didn't, I just called in on my phone, and they were like, "Are you on your cell phone?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Do you have a satellite or anything?" I'm like, "No." Well, we can make this work, but it'd sound a lot better if you were sitting next to a computer. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell me that. And I said, I had good cell phone signal. So I did that. That was the first one that I did. And then remember shortly after that, not to belabor this conversation, but Ryan Bronson and Mark Truex got you and I together, and you helped us at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. And we did our first press conference. Yep. And that was 2 weeks after that interaction with Rockslide. And it was, I took my wife out there with us, and she said, I don't know what the hell you've gotten ourselves into, but if this is what it takes, as long as I get to go to Vegas and eat and shop a little bit, I guess I'm good. So there we are. There we are today. And now we got people that have come to our booths and stuff that we set up, and they hear her stories about her being on the Go Hunt podcast, about her getting a tattoo in Vegas. And she's like, oh my goodness, people know what I'm doing. I'm like, well, that's what a podcast is.
So she was on the podcast with Brady and Trail at the Go Hunt podcast?
Yeah. So we did it out there, and they started asking her questions about Vegas and why she'd like to go to Vegas. And she said, well, I come out of here to get a tattoo. And then we would go to dinner, because we live in Canyon City. So, you can eat at McDonald's, Arby's, or Chili's. And if you're going to shop, you shop at Walmart, and everybody looks alike. So she buys some of her clothes in Vegas. Well, we went out there, and she told this story about her tattoo. And we were at the Mile High Hunt and Fish Expo, and this guy walks up and goes, can I see your tattoo? And this is 9 months after the fact, and she's like, "What the heck is he talking about?" It's so yeah, it's different than what we used to do, but we still do about everything that we did. We just don't get a chance to do as much of it just because we're doing all this.
Yeah.
And there again, selfishly, the constitutional right to hunt and fish might help us enjoy the latter part of our lives as opposed to sitting there at the Capitol waiting for a committee hearing. So it's
Well, Dan, you are worthy of all the accolades that I hear about you.
Thank you, sir.
I always nod my head and say, "Yep, you're right. You're right." And no one said anything bad, or those would get me on the fighting side. So, I
appreciate you standing up for me.
Yeah, well, I haven't had to yet. But so anyhow, thanks for your time here. Thanks for all your work, folks. Go out to Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management. Whether you want to Google them, go to their website, go to their social media pages, any of the above. But this is a good time to jump in the boat, grab an oar, and start rowing, because we're all going to the same beachhead. So appreciate you leading the way, Dan.
Appreciate it, Randy. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you. Hope you do good walleye fishing. And thanks for letting us to continue to spread the word about unite the fight to save the hunt.
There you go. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.